Okay, good morning, all of you. My name is Nitin Marwatka. I work with Beacon as an application engineer. And for today's webinar, we'll be talking about the evolution of SolidWorks. As in, we'll be talking about what all enhancements have been made over the past 3 or 4 releases and what all new features have been added. So let's proceed. Now, SolidWorks, as you know, basically is one of the most user-friendly softwares available outside. Now, every year there are a lot of enhancements which are applied, as well as new features which have been added. Now the good thing about SolidWorks is like they want you to concentrate more on your design and less time trying to figure out where the CAD commands and all. So for that we have a lot of enhancements which are generally added. And the good thing about this enhancement is like most of these enhancements come from the customer, as in the 90% of the enhancements which have been implemented have come from customer ideas. Now you can get an idea that in the last 2 years itself there have been more than 200 enhancements as well as new features which have been added. Now for today's agenda, what we'll be doing is we'll be concentrating on these enhancements. Now we'll be segregating these enhancements based on 4 different aspects. The first one is going to be the sketch part. The second one is going to be the parts. The third one is going to be on assemblies. And the fourth one is going to be on the drawings aspect. So let's proceed with the let's proceed with the sketch aspect. Now in the sketch aspect, there are a lot of new enhancements, especially in 2015. The first and the most significant one that I would like to showcase is the improved sketch relations, wherein SolidWorks has given a new intelligence to all the relationships. Then also we have new features like a new style spline, and also we have something known as the new midpoint lines. So we'll just have a look at all of this. Over here, excuse me. Yeah. As you see over here, I have a particular sketch which is open. Now, let's say, for example, I want to delete these particular 3 lines. You see these 3 lines, I want to delete them. So whenever I do select, invariably, I'm selecting the 4 lines as well over here. Right. So in order to avoid this, we have a new option inside SolidWorks, which was launched in 2014, which is called a lasso selection. What you can do is instead of doing box selection, now what you can do is you can create a kind of a loop wherein all the entities that are part of that loop get selected. So basically that saves a lot of time, especially when you're trying to select all the small entities like small sketches and small arcs and all these things. So let's say I delete these three lines. Now I want to add a center point arc over here or a tangent arc over here. So I'll just add an arc. Now, if you see this, once I click on this arc, you can see that SolidWorks is automatically giving me a pop-up. This pop-up is all the relationships which are applicable for that particular entity or the sketch entity that we have chosen. Over here is showcasing me that, okay, once I finish with the arc, is showing me that do you want the arc to be tangent, wherein over here. So these enhancements are not limited only for arcs, but we have it for lines as well. So let's say, for example, I want to create a line. Once I click on line, you can see that it's showing me all the relationships which are related for or which are relation for that particular entity. So let's say, for example, I want to make it vertical. Now I want to add a spline which will join this particular line to this particular line. Now whoever is working on splines, you know how difficult it is, to get the spline exactly right. So in order to help you out in this, SolidWorks has launched a new type of spline which is called a style spline. This was launched in 2014. Now the idea behind this is like you just create the points and just take the spline in the direction that you want the spline to take. That's it. So if you see this, it's very easy for creating a spline, right? Now also one more enhancement that has been done with respect to relationships, like if you click on the vertex, you can see that all the relevant relationships are showcased. So let's say, for example, I want to make this equal curvature. I can easily do this. Also for this one, this particular vertex, if I click on this, is going to show me a tangent. So the whole idea behind this is so that you reduce the number of clicks which are required for providing the relations. Now you see this particular line over here, right? This line looks a little bit crooked, right? So if you click on this, SolidWorks automatically showcases me the relationships, but also if you see this, is highlighting the particular relationship that it thinks is the right one for the particular line. In this particular example, you can see that it's a horizontal. So once I click on horizontal, that's it. Now there are some enhancements which have been made in terms of dimensions as well. So let's say, for example, I want to give an dimension for this particular angle with respect to this center line. So if I click on this, if I press shift, it's going to give me the whole angle. The same applies for this particular angle as well. Now one more enhancement which has been made, which is quite a significant one, is the one of segments. You see this particular line. Now many a times what happens is I want to divide that line into various segments. So normally the procedure is like I'll have to create points on those particular line and there are a lot of calculations while creating these lines, and then I have to use the option of split entities, and then I have to cut the line. So instead of this, we have a new feature which is called segment. If you go for a segment, I just select the particular line. Now I have two options, whether I want to delete those, whether I want to create 6 sketch points, or whether do I want to create 6 sketch segments. So over here I'm going with the option of creating 6 sketch segments. So you can see that the line has been divided into 6 different segments over here. If at all you want to make some changes, let's say for example I want to remove the relationships and I want to move this in a particular angle, I can do the same. So this is where you can segregate, or you can divide your particular line. So these are some of the new enhancements which have been made in terms of sketches. So moving along. So moving along, we'll go to the enhancements which has been made in terms of paths. Now in paths, there are a lot of enhancements which are with respect to patterns. So over the period of years, we have come up with new types of patterns, like variable pattern in terms of linear pattern. Then we also have the option of editing a pattern content type with respect to features as well as face and body. And now we have a new type of a pattern which is called a variable table pattern. So we'll just have a look at this. So over here we have a sheet metal box. Now you can see that this particular pattern, it's a linear pattern, but now from 2013 onwards there's a new instance, and there's a new option which says instances to vary, right? So based on this, I can create different types of patterns which are really helpful. So what I do is I'll have a slot over here. I'll use the linear pattern for creating the same kind of pattern which you see in front. So for that, what I do is I'll go for features. I'll go for my linear pattern. Now this variable pattern works on the same principle of how you create a linear pattern, as in you decide the direction that you want the slot to take. So I'm going to select this particular line. And then I'm going to select that particular cut extrude that I have. Also, I'm going to define the distance between those two. Now, if you scroll down, I'll see on the left hand side that we have an option which says instances to vary, right? So once I click on this, it's going to ask me the direction spacing increment. So over here, I'm going to put in 7. Now in the blue box, it says that choose the feature dimensions to vary in directions. So over here, I want to vary the slot length as well as the slot width. Now I get a new callout over here. In this callout, I can define how much do I want the increment to be. So let's say, for example, in a direction 1 for slot length, I want it to be around 40, and the slot width I want it to change by, let's say, 4. Right now, if you see, the 5th slot is actually going beyond the boundary of the sheet metal, right? So in order to make some modifications to this, I click on this pink dot, and over here we have the option wherein we can say skip instance or modify instance. Over here I'll be using the modify instance. Once I go for modify instance, I'll be able to make the modification to the slot length. I want it to be around 150 mm. So that's it. So this is a way you can make your variable patterns easily, right? So one more example is in terms of linear pattern again. Now you see this particular linear bearing rail. Now what we have done is we have a cut revolve over here. Now we use the linear pattern for getting these number of holes over here. But now the problem is, if at all if I change the dimension, let's say I change the dimension from 1800 to 800, you'll see that the pattern fails, right? Now, in order to take care of this, we have a new enhancement in 2015 itself. If I go for edit feature, if I have an option of saying defining up to reference. So if I click on up to reference, I just need to select the particular vertex. Now I have the option over here. If I want to do an offset, I can do an offset as well. Let's say, for example, I'm going to give it an equation. So I'm going to give it is equal to this particular dimension. Now in this particular option, I have two options over here as well, as in I can define spacing, or I can define the holes to be based on the number of instances. So let's say I'm going with the spacing aspect. That's it. So now if I make some modifications, you can see that it keeps on adding a number of holes, right? Now let's say if I go into the edit pattern and I want to change it with number of instances. So the instances I've given is like 12. So you can see that the number of instances are remaining the same and the distance between them is increasing, right? So this is a new enhancement which has been created in 2015 version. Now moving along, again, when we're talking about variables, we have a new feature which is called a variable pattern altogether. Now you see that this is a particular strainer. You see this particular slots over here. These slots are pretty difficult to achieve when you go for with the traditional methods, right? I mean, it's a little bit cumbersome. So over here we have a new kind of a pattern which is called variable pattern. So I already have a single slot over here. I'll go for variable pattern. Over here it's going to ask me the features to pattern. So I'll take the slot which I want to use, and then we have a new option over here which is called a create pattern table. If I click on this is pretty similar to what you see inside a design table. I have an option of adding a new instance, and in this instance what I'm going to do is I'm going to vary my angle, I want to vary the slot length, and I want to vary the offset between the slots as well. So now if you see this table, I want to make some modifications to this. Let's say I want it to be at 18 degrees. And I want the slot length to vary, let's say, to 25, and I want the slot offset to be around 25 as well. Once I enter the parameters, I have the option of saying update preview. So once I go for update preview, I'll be able to see how exactly does it look like. So let's say I want to add another 18 more slots to the same. Now since this table that you see is based on Excel, so whatever functions that you normally associate with Excel, you'll be able to use the same over here. That means if I drag it down, I'll be able to populate the angles column. Also, I have the option of copying and pasting the same over here. So I can do a copy of this again. I'll just paste it. I'll just paste this. Yeah, so this way I can easily populate it. I'll be able to see a preview over here as well. That's it. I'll say okay. So it's not limited only for a year. Let's say, for example, I want to make some modifications to the slots I've created. That also is possible. What I need to do is I just need to double click on this. I have the option of defining with I have the option of changing the slots on the row itself. The whole aspect is the whole point is you don't need to keep on going inside the feature to make some modifications. And also, let's say, for example, I want to suppress this slot altogether. The same thing I can do inside the variable pattern. I just right click on it and say suppress. So you can do a suppression without affecting the other slots that you've created. So these were some of the enhancements which I've made in terms of pattern. So next we'll go to sheet metal. What are the changes that have been made in terms of sheet metal? We'll just have a look. The first one that has been created is the faceting options, which are available whenever you're creating a loft. Now, another significant enhancement which has been made is in terms of non-parallel lofted bends. Also, we have a new option by which you can add gussets directly in sheet metal. And also in 2015, we have a new option wherein we can see the gussets when the sheet metal is flattened completely. So we'll just have a look at all of this. So like I was saying, there's a new enhancement which has been made in terms of sheet metal. Now you see this particular profile over here. These profiles you can see are in two different planes which are non-parallel to each other. Now in the previous versions, in order to make a loft for sheet metal, that was not possible at all. But in 2015 onwards, we have an option of creating the lofted burns with respect to the profiles which are non-parallel to each other as well. Now in 2014, we created a new option which is called the faceting options whenever we go for creating a loft, inside by which we can define with respect to number of bends, we can define with chord tolerance, or we can even define the segment lengths. Let's say, for example, for over here, I want the facet value to be around 5. Okay, and I'll create a loft. The whole advantage of this is once I create a loft, I'll be able to get when I do a flatten, I'll be able to get the bend lines. I'll be able to get the bend lines for the loft over here. You can see that you can get the bend lines very easily, right? So now I'll move to my other configuration. Now one more enhancement which has been made in 2014 was the addition of gussets. Now initially in the previous versions, what you had to do was, if you had to add a gusset over here, you normally would have to use a form tool for that, right? So this has been completely eliminated in 2014 onwards. We have a new option which is called a sheet metal gusset directly, and this works on the same principle as how you provide a gusset on a weldment as well. As in, you just select the two particular faces, and then you have a lot of options over here whether you want to offset it, and you can define the kind of you can change the profile length dimensions, or you can also change the height as well as the radius over here. All these options are pretty much available. Now the problem was that if I do a flatten now, I'm not able to see where my gussets were, right? And for some customers, this was one of the most, this is something which most of the customers wanted, that they wanted to see where the gussets lie whenever the sheet metal is flattened. So now in 2015 onwards, we have a new option wherein if you go for options, and if I go for document properties, and if I go for sheet metal, I have an option over here which says show sheet metal gusset profiles when flattened, and also I have the option of saying show sheet metal centers when flattened. So I'll just say OK. Now again, if I go back to my sheet metal part, and if I go for flatten, you can see that I can get my sheet metal, I can get my gusset profiles over here, and also I have the center of that gussets available over here as well, right? So one more enhancement, it's a small enhancement, but I would like to showcase this, is like the option of corner reliefs. So now in 2014 onwards, we have a new option wherein I can collect all the corners at one time, and also I have the option of defining whether I want it to be rectangular, or whether I want it to be circular, or whether I want it to be orthogonal to all of them, or I also have the option of selecting individual ones and providing the kind of reliefs over here, right? So these are some of the enhancements which have been made with respect to the sheet metal. So moving along, we'll have a look at whatever enhancements have been made in terms of weldments. Now, in terms of weldments, the most significant enhancement is like the gussets option again. Now, the enhancement which has been made is like you can provide gussets across gaps. That means if you have multi bodies which have a gap in between them, you can still provide a gusset. And also you can provide gussets between circular members, and you can also provide gussets now between circular members and square members as well. And also in terms of weldments, we have a new enhancement in terms of weld beads. So you can provide weld beads in between multiple bodies. You can also create a single body weld, as well as create a new weld bead with respect to a single weld path also. So we'll just have a look at this. Now over here you see a weldment structure. Let's say for example, I'll just go and edit this. In 2015 onwards, what we have done is like we can segregate the different structures inside a group easily. So what I mean to say is, whenever I click on a particular group, I'll be able to see the all the structures that are part of that group. So it makes it easier for me to understand which structure is part of which group. And also the corner treatment dialog box has been changed. Initially, if you remember in the previous versions, whenever I went for group 1 or group 2, I had three different windows, right? But now all the options come inside the single window. Now, like I was telling you, one of the most significant enhancement in terms of elements is the addition of gussets, right? So I'll go for gussets. You see this particular member, you see this particular structural member over here. It has a gap between it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select these two faces. Now I have an option of providing a gusset on the multi-body parts, even if there's a gap in between them. So this is a new enhancement which has been created. Again, I'll select these two faces. Not only this, I have an option of providing the gusset for circular structure members as well. So if I select these two pipes, I can provide a gusset over here as well. And also I can provide a gusset between a circular member as well as a spherical member. The only thing is I get a new option over here in which I need to define the gusset direction. So if you see this, I have to select the direction I want to take the gusset, and then I just define where I want to place my gusset, and that's it. Right. So another enhancement which has been made in terms of weldments is like the option of weld beads. We can provide weld beads for multi-body parts as well. So let's say for example I want to provide a weld bead over here. I just select this part, and I also select this circular member. So I can easily provide weld beads between multi-body parts. I can provide a weld bead in 3 different locations as well, whenever I select this particular member. And one of the most significant enhancement which has been made is in terms of this. Let's say for example, this is basically a sheet metal box. So I want to provide a weld bead so that it's completely closed, right? So this is one of the most significant enhancements in terms of weld beads, I guess. So if I select this edge, I select this face, and for this I select edge. I just define the bead size, and that's it. And also we have a new type of weld bead over here. It says weld path. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select this particular edge. Once I select the edge, is going to create a weld bead on that whole particular edge. So these can be applicable for any types of weldments. So let's say for example I want to apply a weld bead on this particular intersection between a gusset and a circular member. I just need to select the edge, and that's it. That's it. You can see that the weld beads are formed, right? Now in terms of weldments, again we have another enhancement, and that is with respect to the cut list. Now if you see this, you can see that gussets are, whatever gussets that we added have not been updated, right? So in terms of cut list, we have a new option which says update automatically. So whenever I do this, whatever members I add, let's say if I'm adding a gusset also, all of this will be updated immediately. And in terms of cut list also, I have another enhancement in terms of properties, wherein I can define the number of, I can get the number of quantity as well as I can get the total length which is required for the cut list. These are the new enhancements that have been made. Now, also one more enhancement is in terms of viewing the cut list itself. So if I go for document, if I go for options, and if I go for document properties, and if I go for elements option, I have an option over here which says rename the cut list folder with description property values. So this is something which most of our customers wanted. They wanted to see the cut list in terms of the description of the particular structures. So I just click on this. You can see that the cut list and the reference has completely changed to match the description of the structures and all the things that we have provided, right? So these are some of the enhancements which have been made in terms of elements. So moving along, we have new features as well. We call them productivity enhancers. So these are some of the new features which have been added in the last few releases. One of the most important one is the costing aspect. In terms of costing, what SolidWorks costing does is it gives you an idea as to how much is going to cost you for creating a particular part. This takes into consideration the cost of the raw material. It also takes into consideration the setup time, the labor time, the machine time, and all these things are automatically calculated by SolidWorks and gives you a complete idea. It also gives you a complete breakup of all the cost itself. Now, the good thing about SolidWorks costing is like you can use it for sheet metal, you can use it for weldments, you can use it for machine components, you can even use it for 3D printing and casting. One more new enhancement which has been added is an option of feature freeze. So what feature freeze does is like if you're working on configurations of a single part, right, and you make some modifications and you want to see how that modification is applied to the rest of the configurations. If you change the configuration, you know that there's always some kind of a rebuild. I mean, it takes some time for the rebuild option, right? Now, even if the time taken is hardly 10 or 15 seconds, but it's quite frustrating at times. So this is where feature freeze helps you out. What you're going to do is going to freeze all the features so that the time taken in between changing the configurations is minimum. Also, we have a new option which is called a part reviewer. Now, what this part reviewer does is gives you an idea as to how this particular part, whatever part it is working on, how it has been made. So this is very useful, especially when you're sharing your design across multiple platforms or multiple designers, so they can have an idea as to whatever changes are made and why the changes have been made over here as well. So we'll just have a look at some of these. We'll have a look at the costing first. Over here we have a particular bench which has been made in sheet metal. So if I want to go for costing, it's available inside evaluate. I'll go for costing. Once I click on costing, on the right hand side you're going to see a window. Now SolidWorks has already provided costing for most of these components. It has already see that it's already selected the sheet metal option, but you can see that there are two options over here which is cast foot 2 and cast foot 1. Now, like I said, in SolidWorks we can SolidWorks costing, we can apply the costing for castings as well. So for this cast, I just need to provide the type of a body. It's going to be a general, and in the method it's going to be, I'm going to select the casting option. Now in terms of material, I'm going to select aluminum alloys, and that's it. Now there's another casting foot. I'll just click on that. I'll again repeat the same procedure and go for general. I change it for casting. I change the material to aluminum alloys. Now you can see that it says begin cost estimation. Once I click on this, what's going to happen is SolidWorks is going to take into consideration all the different parameters or all the different multi-body parts inside this particular part, and is going to give me an estimate on how much is going to cost for each and every individual multi-body. Taking that into consideration is going to give me a total cost. If you see on the right hand side, it's giving me a cost saying that it's going to, in order to produce this particular seat or a bench is going to cost me somewhere close to $382.81. So I'll set this as a baseline. Now, if I go for my, if I open this option, I'll double click on seat. I'll be able to see where and how my cost is applicable over here. You can see that it's my cost for setups has been defined. My cost for my cut path has also been defined, and also the cost for my bends have been defined over here. Now, one thing you'll notice that all this cost is coming automatically. It's not something which I have already provided or something. SolidWorks is intelligent enough to decide all the parameters on its own. Right. Another advantage over here is, let's say for example, there's a additional operation that I have to do. Let's say there's a painting or something. I can add that particular option over here as well. So if I go for custom operations, I have the option of defining painting, or whether I want to go for anodizing, or even if I want to go for inspection. So whatever extra costs you think are going to be applicable, you can apply over here. Right. So now let's say for example, if I go back, if I make some modifications to this, let's say there's a new logo, I'll just unsuppress this. So you can see on the right hand side, the minute I made some new modifications, it asked me for updation. So once I click on update, you can see that the cost has increased, right? Because I'm adding another operation over here. So obviously if I add a new operation, my cost is going to increase. So this is the way where you can easily find out how much is the part going to cost. Even if you make some modifications or something to the part, you can easily update the cost, right? And the advantage over here is I can generate a report for this as well. Now all these things is coming from a template. I'll just show you the template. Okay. All this cost is coming from a master template, wherein you're going to define the cost over here. You're going to define the cost for machining when it comes to different materials. You can also define the cost with respect to plastics or casting or 3D printing. You can also define the cost with respect to machine, as in the milling machine, how much is the machine cost, how much is the labor cost going to charge, and how much is the load and unload on the setup times for that. So all these things is coming, all the costs what do we see over here is coming from these particular templates, right? So this is just a brief idea about how SolidWorks costing works. Now, one more example I would like to showcase you is about the part reviewer. Now, like I told you, part reviewer is just to see how a particular part has been created, right? So I'll just go for part reviewer. Yeah. So this is basically gives you an idea as to how this complete part has been created. So if I go for jump from beginning, I have the options. I mean, I can add my own comments over here as well. So this base flange, and also I get all the dimensions over here. So as a designer, let's say I have come across this particular file and I want to see how this particular file has been created. So I can get a step-by-step instruction as to how this particular part has been created as well. And also I have the option of providing my own comments over here. Let's say for example, it says, is this dimension correct? So I can add my own comment over here which says, along with the date and time, it says yes, this dimension is correct, and then I can save it. So this way I can add my own comments over here, and then I can share it across to multiple designers who will be able to add their own designs, and you can collaborate these designs along multiple designers as well as multiple departments in manufacturing and design and all these aspects very well. So this is one of the beautiful tools, very useful tools when you want to collaborate your designs across. So moving along, we'll talk about all the enhancements which have been made in terms of assemblies over here. The new enhancements include the mate intelligence, wherein you just select the components and automatically SolidWorks suggests the right mate. We have a new kind of a mate altogether, which is called a profile center mate. They've also made some enhancements in terms of width mates. So we'll just have a look at these. Now, if you notice, I'll select these two particular components. And to select these two components, I get a pop-up window over here, which basically shows me all the relevant mates which are with respect to the selection I have done. So it's giving me, since I've selected these two particular faces or these two components, is showing me all the relevant mates like the coincident mate or the parallel mate or even the perpendicular mate. But let's say I want to make some modifications to this. Let's say I want to give it a different kind of a mate. So I'll go to my mate option. Once I go to my mate option, like I told you, there's a new type of mate. If I go for advanced mate, we have a new type of a mate which is called a profile center. So if I click on profile center, it automatically centers both the components together. I have the option of rotating it clockwise or anti-clockwise as well. Now the advantage over here is, even if the dimensions for this one, this changes, let's say for example, this changes from 45 to 60, automatically the profile changes along with it as well, right? Now you see this particular shaft. Now this shaft has been given a concentric mate, but it can go through the particular boss, right? So in order to fix it, we have two options. We can use a limit mate or we can use a width mate. Let's say for example, I'm going to use a width mate over here. So I'll just select the four faces, and then if I go for a mate option, inside the mate option, I can see that there's a new drop-down menu, which basically it says centered, which was the default one over the last few releases. But now we have a different option, which is called free, dimension, or percent. So let's say if I go for a free option, so once I apply the free width mate, you can see that it is allowed to move within the parameters that we have constrained it to, right? So this saves me a lot of time, because instead of giving it a limit mate and all that, I can easily do it inside the width mate. Now one more option which has been added in terms of 2015, in terms of assembly itself, is like limit mates. So let's say for example, I want to apply a limit mate between these two particular faces. So once I click on this, it gives me a pop-up dialog with all the relevant mates. But if I go for my mate option, I go for my advanced mate, I go for angle, I define the angle to be 45. Now I have a new option over here which says with respect to a reference entity. So if I go for a reference entity, I'm just going to select this, or I have the option of letting SolidWorks define the reference entity automatically. So I just select this, and I'll give the maximum as 90, I'll say the minimum as 0. That's it. Now if I want to see how it's going to work, you can see it's a little bit troublesome, right? Because there are a lot of features which are moving along with that particular part. Now in order for this, we have a new option inside move component. If we go for move component, we have a new option which is called temporary fixed group, wherein I can define which components do I want to temporarily fix. So if I select this particular boss, I can see that it makes it much more easier for me to rotate and see. Also, I have a new option over here inside which I can group a particular components which I want to fix all together. So I can select these two components which are completely fixed, can resume drag, and now I can go and see whether there's some kind of a collision or something. It makes my life much more easier whenever I'm moving a particular component, right? Now there's a new announcement in terms of whenever you're entering a new part. So let's say for example, I'm going for insert component, I'll go for browse, I'm going for clamping knob. So once I go and say insert clamping knob, I get a new option over here on the left hand side, which is a new dialog box by which I can rotate the placement of a particular component. I can rotate it about different axes so that whenever I'm dropping it, I get it exactly right. Now one more new announcement is in terms of deleting your child assemblies. So let's say I have a particular part over here, and if I want to delete this particular part, in the previous version, what used to happen was whatever child features are associated with this particular part, even those parts used to get deleted. But over here in 2015 onwards, we have an option. Let's say, for example, I am going for deleting this particular part. I have an option of defining whether I want to delete the child features or not. So let's say I don't want to delete these child features. I'll say yes. So it makes my life much more easier, right? Now there's a new enhancement when it comes for copying with mates as well. Now I'll just select these components which I want to copy. Now copy with mates also supports the with mate. So I'm just going to select the particular features, and I'm just going to define where my with mate is. That's it. So the new copy with mate feature accepts the new kind of with mate as well. You can see that it's completely mated together, right? So these were all the enhancements which are done with respect to assemblies. Now we'll have a look at what all enhancements which have been made in terms of drawings. In terms of drawings, there are quite a few enhancements. There's a new type of a spline leader when it comes to balloons and all those things. We have an option of manipulating your angle dimensions, and there's a new enhancement or a new way that you can create automatic revisions as well. Continuing with drawings, we also have a new option in the previous release, which is called open part in position, reattach the center marks, and also we have an option of keeping your sensitive data. I mean, you can take an option of whether you want to print your sensitive data or not. So we have a new option inside security. So we'll just have a look at all this enhancements which have been made in terms of drawings. Yeah. You see this particular part, and you see this particular part over here, particular assembly over here. Now the assembly already has the balloons defined, right? So if I select this, and if I go for more properties, I have a new kind of a leader which is called a spline leader. So the advantage of this is like I can manipulate it to any size, any direction I want. The advantage of this, you can apply it for especially the tricky parts which are very difficult to capture. Now one more option is like in terms of applying your radial dimensions. So let's say for example I go for smart dimension and I have to select this particular line. Now in order to give the radial dimension, what I had to do in the previous time is like I had to create a center line over here, and then I have to take with respect to the center line, right? Now instead of this, if I click on this point, it's going to give me a quadrant. I'm just going to select this particular direction, and I get this particular dimension. Now let's say for example I want to change this dimension, I want to change the location of this dimension. That also is possible. I right click on this, I go for display options, and I say vertically opposite direction, right? In terms of revision also, there are some enhancements. The way you make a revision, that also in change. We have a new icon over here which says click to add revision. If I click to add revision, it adds a new column, a new row over here. Along with that, I can define where do I want to place my revision. So let's say for example I want to place it over here also, and I want to define it over here. So now if you go and have a look at the columns, you have a look at the zone, you can see there's a new option. It showcases the zones, like it says D5 and E5. This is also possible inside 2015. I want to see the zones that have been created. I can do the same over here. If I go for view and if I go for zone lines, I'll be able to see which zones do they lie under, right? Now there's one more enhancement which has been made in terms of how you create your center points or center marks. Let's say, for example, I'll just open this particular component, but if I right click on this, I have an option over here which says open part in position. So the advantage of this is like you don't have to spend time trying to orient the part in the same way that is there inside your drawings. Now I want to make some modifications to this. Let's say, for example, I delete this particular hole and I add two more holes over here. And when I go back to my drawing, you can see that it's going to show me a dangling position, right? This particular center mark that I see is going to show me as is dangling. Now there's a new option inside SolidWorks 2015 wherein I can reattach this particular center mark with respect to the new holes. So I just right click on it and say reattach, and I select the hole that I want to reattach it with. And also there's a new hole that we've added, right? So we need to get the center mark for that as well. So for this, if I right click on this, I have an option which says, add to center mark set, and then select the particular circle. So it automatically adds the circle or the center mark for that particular circle as well, right? So we have a few more enhancements which have been made in terms of drawings. One of the most significant enhancement which has been made over the last 2-3 releases is the option of adding your section line. So initially what we used to do in terms of section lines was what we used to do was, excuse me one second, we used to create a line and then we used to go to layout, and then we used to create a section view, right? So instead of this, the whole process of providing a section view has been completely streamlined. So if you go for section view, I have the section views which are already been defined, right? So I have an option over here which says create a vertical section view. I'll just select where I want to place it. Once I click on it, it gives me an option whether I want to offset it or not. Let's say, for example, I want to offset a particular section view. I'll just select the direction I want that offset to take, and I'll select OK. So this way I can create multiple offsets for creating a section view. Not only that, I can provide section views for auxiliary views, aligned views as well. So let's say if I want to give a section view on aligned component, so I'll just select where I want to drop it. I'll start where it's going to start, a direction I want it to take, and then again I have a pop-up window which says if I want to do an arc offset, I'll go for an arc offset. I'll select this particular point, and that's it. So these are the different ways that you can create your section views. It's much more streamlined and you can easily create your section views. And in case you want to avoid this altogether, we have a different type of section view as well, wherein if you go for a half section, you can directly, this already been predefined. So you just select the ones that you want to create. You just drop it to a particular position that you think it's going to start the section view from. And that's it. I can get a section view. So you can see that the process of creating section views is completely streamlined, and it's much more easier for creating section views as well. Now one more enhancement that I wanted to touch upon is the change of dimensions and the way you can provide ballooning as well. You can make a sequential ballooning. So what I'm showcasing you is like all the enhancements which have been made over the previous 2 or 3 releases. So you see this particular part over here. If I right click on this, I have an option which says whether I want to open the particular part or I have the option of opening the subassembly as well. So let's say I open the subassembly, okay, and it has a series of holes over here, right? So let's say I make a modification to this particular holes. I want to change the dimensions over here. So you see the dimension over here is 80. I'll just change it to, let's say, 75. And if I right click on this and I say open drawing, now what's going to happen is I have an option in which is going to show me that the dimensions are automatically changed. You can see that it gives me a different color warning saying that the dimensions have changed. Not only that, it gives me an idea as to what was the previous dimension and what is the current dimension over here. So this way I can easily find out if somebody has made some modifications to the parts and you're not aware of it. As a designer, you can easily check this, right? So it gives you an indication what are the previous dimensions and all these things in a different color altogether, right? So one more enhancement which has been made in terms of the view palette is, if you have a look at the view palette, is going to see that you get some small check marks over here. This basically shows all the views which are already there inside the particular sheet, so you don't end up dropping the same sheets over here again. So let's say, for example, I want the explore view. I just drop it over here. Now I want to add ballooning for it. But before that, I'll just go and okay. So I want to add a ballooning over here. This ballooning is based on the bill of material, obviously. Now, if I go for ballooning option, just 1 second. Just give me 1 second. Okay. I'll just continue with what all new enhancements which have been made with in terms of drawings. Now, let's say I have a particular drawing over here. Now, you see this particular sheet, we already have given the dimensions and all these things, right? But then we later realize that we've been giving a dimension to the wrong part, or let's say, for example, a wrong assembly altogether. So now, if I had to do a replace of a model, it's a very tedious process in the previous releases. So now, instead of this, we have a new option which says replace model. So if I go for a replace model, I just go for and choose which model do I want to replace. So this particular part that you see, I want to replace with the assembly of a laptop. I just click on the particular assembly. It gives me all the different views that I want to. It shows me which all views I want to change. And whether I want to update only my front view, bottom view, or the right view. Oh yeah, I want to update all the views. I said okay. So you can see that replacing a particular document with respect to another document, especially when you're creating the drawings, is very easy now. Also, in terms of section views, it's very easy for you to edit the section views also. So let's say, for example, I have a particular section view. I'm going to right click on this and say edit cutting line. So again, the same offset pop-up window comes over here. I can define where I want to offset it to. Set okay. Right. There is a new enhancement which has been made in terms of the slots as well. So I would just like to showcase that. But for that, I need a detailed view. So I take a detailed view over here, and I'll drop it over here. Now, there's one more enhancement which has been made in terms of a detailed view or the section view also. You see this particular dialog box, which gives me an idea about this particular view. Let's say if I double click on this and I accidentally delete this scale of 1:1. Now, in order to get it back, in the previous releases, what I had to do was I had to delete the section view, and again I had to uh, put the same thing again. So now instead of this, in the notes option, I have the option of providing all the things. I can provide the name, I can see the scale, I can also provide the label as well as a delimiter over here. Now, one more enhancement that has been made in 2013 was inclusion of slots inside whole wizards itself. So I can provide whole callouts for the slots over here as well. This works on the same principle of how it works on holes. So these are some of the enhancements that I wanted to showcase which have been made over the last 2-3 versions. Now, unfortunately for us, the enhancements, like I said, there are more than 200 or 300 enhancements. So it's very difficult for us to, showcase all of them at one time. So if you think that, you are interested in these enhancements and you would like to know something more about this, you can drop me a mail. My email ID is nitin.m@beacon-india.com, or you can even give me a call. And if you think that you would like to know more about this at your own premises, again, we'll be more than happy to come down to your premises and give a complete thorough uh, you know a demonstration of all the enhancements with respect to your particular domain. So with this, I would like to end, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Again, if you have any questions that you would like to ask me, you can ask the questions in the dialog box. Okay, we are actually running out of time. So if at all you have any questions or anything, then again, you are free to reach me at nitin.m@beacon-india.com, or you can even give me a call and let me know. So I hope this webinar was helpful for you. So I would like to thank you for spending your time over here. Thank you.